Good afternoon and welcome to Djuma, welcome to Wild Earth this afternoon. Welcome to our PM safari on a really beautiful day. And you know what, if I didn't know it was a Sunday, it's just got that feeling that it's a Sunday. The sun is coming out, the cloud has opened up, there is some beautiful cloud formation, or there are rather some beautiful cloud formations in the sky, and it is hopefully a promising sunset coming our way a little bit later. We've got some time to fill in between. My name is Mark. Andrew's on camera with me this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are, whatever your time of day is. And of course Tara back in final control. Great to be out here this afternoon. We have a few things to follow up on. In fact, we have to start, of course, with a leopard who made a kill very close to camp a couple of days ago. It was an impala, and we've watched as the days of the last 36 hours have worn on how much he's eaten. He wasn't there when we came along this morning at the end of drive. We saw him early, we saw him opening up our morning drive this morning, but unfortunately he kind of took a walkabout somewhere along the line, and we got an idea of what was left of the carcass when we left at the end of drive this morning. So it's going to be interesting. We need to kind of follow up, because without following up, how do we know how these things are resolved or how they end? And the only way to do that is to actually go and have a look. So we're going to start. We're going to have a look and see what might be left. We'll get an idea whether he's been up the tree again or not, or whether he is close by. And then, well, I've got a couple of things that I want to check on, but I don't want to put too much out there. I want it to be as flowing as possible, as spontaneous as possible. A couple of things we're going to check on are the hyena den, because there were some interesting develops there that Brent and some of the guys found this morning after drive, and there is also the news that Mvula was somewhere near Griffelshoek Dam. So we've got a fair area to cover this afternoon to follow up on these things, and we're going to be looking at all of the signs that we can maybe find along the way to tell us what transpired in places where we weren't able to actually witness it. And this is what reading the bush is all about, is trying to make up the stories of what went along, what went down, as it were. So I won't waste your time too much longer. Let's go and see where this little leopard is. This is a young male leopard. His name is Quarantine Male, and he's the son of a fantastic leopard known as Karula. Who's also known as the Queen of Djuma. I'm seeing something. We're looking over across. Oh, it's nothing. It's dead leaves, coloured like a leopard. Looking across Djuma waterhole, also known as Gari Dam, where we have a camera and we have viewers, we call zoomies, people who help us operate that camera, panning and tilting and zooming and following anything that comes to the waterhole 24 hours a day. Interesting infrared light at night as well. And we often rely on the zoomies to tell us what they might have seen during the night, in case things like leopard or lion or interesting animals might have come past that we can follow up on in the morning for our morning drive. And so I'm going to ask any of the zoomies that might have been busy between drive and now if any of the cats made an appearance. I'm guessing not much change in the status quo here. As we approach the marula tree where he had his kill, I think he's finished. I think he's done with it. What we see hanging are sort of the four quarters that are reduced to merely the front legs, and there's a fair amount of skin that's still connecting the back legs. Looks like he's even been through the vertebral column, and no doubt dropped pieces, a lot of pieces along the way, and I'm sure hyenas might be here later to investigate. I very much doubt whether he'll be back. Just drive through here to see if maybe he's not somewhere sleeping under a tree but I think he might have decided that he's rather outstayed his welcome in these parts. His welcome in terms of the animals who have been affected by hunting in this area. Right before he killed this impala, his brother killed a steenbok, maybe 150, 200 yards south of us, and also fed quite extensively on that carcass. But for that one it took him only about a day because it was a much smaller antelope. This was an adult female impala, and it has taken him probably the better part of more than 48 hours. For the last 18 hours perhaps, no, a little bit more than that actually, more than that, isn't it, since we've had rain and cloud, it's like more like 36. Night before last we started getting thunderstorms, and then there was a big rain, and then lately it's just been overcast. We had some rain between morning drive and now. So during the day we had a little shower that moved through, but miraculously the sky has opened up and blue skies are winning. There's some beautiful cloud formations that are going to maybe produce thunderstorms for later on. Isolated ones, very isolated ones. One thing about the weather clearing up like this is, or in conjunction with a few days of overcast weather. Overcast weather means that a lot of the raptors end up sitting in trees for most of the time because they don't have the thermals to keep them aloft, and it's a lot of energy for them to maintain flight for being such a fairly large and heavy bird. And most of the birds of prey soar or glide and use air currents. I've just seen a bateleur snake eagle pretty speedily flying south, but that is what they do. They fly in almost like grids through their territory. They fly at about 200 meters, and I'm hoping that we'll see it, because I'm guessing that it's going to fly south, get to the end of its territory, and then it'll start coming back north in a slightly different area. Kind of the same way we fly an aeroplane to do game counts. Towards the end of the dry season. But I'm also hoping to find other raptors, because finally this afternoon there is some sunshine and some thermals are starting to form, and it gives these birds a chance to air their wings, because they've most likely been sitting on trees puffed up for the last day and a half. The hyena den, because there's some very interesting things. We saw a drag mark this morning, drag marks of a predator dragging prey, and I couldn't really show it to you. It didn't really come out very well, and if we can trace these drag marks back to where they came from. Of course I know where they came from now, because after drive Brent went out, because he was getting the cabin fever after the rain, and Brent went out to try and see if we could find Mvula, because we couldn't get to him this morning, and Brent found these drag marks. I'm not going to tell you where, because we're going to going to form part of our afternoon. But the fact that I know that it comes from a certain point, it's not going to detract from the fact that we're going to follow, and that it changes my perception of it. But the drag marks ended up at the hyena den, so I want to go past the hyena den. I'm not really expecting any of them to be out, but maybe they are. Maybe they've also been a little bit cold with the weather rate of late, and maybe they will be lying out in the sun, or just lying out, getting a little bit warmer than they have been while it's been so damp. In Memphis is asking what will happen to the rest of that carcass if our quarantine male doesn't go back to the carcass. Will it eventually fall out of the tree? Or there are a couple of scenarios, Kathy, and different scenarios can happen based on what the weather is doing. It can fall out of the tree, and especially now because we're in fairly wet and moist conditions, and there's a strong likelihood that with the moist conditions the skin can stay pretty supple, or the fleshy, whatever bits that are left, soft enough that the insects that might come out because of this rain will be able to act on it, and maybe bacteria as well has a better chance of helping the decomposition process. Not only insects, other arthropods, even though it may be in a tree, there are certain insects that only feed on and are here to dispose of carcasses and to dispose of the things that the predators leave behind. Because everything has to eventually be returned to the soil, after all. So there are all sorts of things. Certain beetles, there are flies who lay their eggs, and the larvae, the maggots, feed on it. Some beetles that are specialist carcass beetles, the cadaver beetles, that have a specific function. We've noticed already a number of millipedes out because of the rain. And because there are a few insects or other arthropods moving about, there's a greater chance of whatever's left decomposing better, or being broken down and maybe eventually falling out of the tree. There's always a chance that another leopard might come across it and might investigate, might just decide to chew on it. Unfortunately, there's not much else. Genet might, I don't know. African wildcat might. Let's face it, they are not young, I mean small predators, and everything has to be opportunist. There are only a few very fussy eaters out there. Cheetah, I think, were one of them. If it were in the middle of the dry season, when there's the least likelihood of there being beetles and flies, I don't know, there's never a least likelihood of there being flies. I think they're here to stay. But when it desiccates a lot faster, there's a less chance of any insects or anything else being able to feed on it. And sometimes these things can just mummify, and it has been known to find mummified carcasses in trees that nothing gets to, whether it's animals that have died in the tree or animals that have, there's a pearl-spotted owl. Ooh, I love it, I love it. I'm going to have to move very carefully to get it perfectly in a gap like that, almost, except the tail's behind the branch. There. Oh, sorry, that's me. I dropped the clutch. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Not the cameraman's fault. You see how I can get distracted now. Just trying to get the right sort of aperture on the camera, because we are looking into a fairly bright sky and we're trying to bring you some sort of definition of its face, and I want to do that because there's something unique about the pearl-spotted owl, and at the moment it's looking at us. And now as it looks away, I'm hoping we can see. No, he looked back again. Wait for it. Something special is going to happen. Oh, look, there's a grasshopper behind you. Don't blink at me, but there's a grasshopper behind you, Mr. Owl. Mrs. Owl. Yeah, there. No, further back. No, not that side. Behind you. Doesn't believe me. What I want to show you are these false eyes on the back of its head that are just so incredible. And it's, I guess, something that has developed to give it an edge. Being such a small owl, this is probably the smallest owlet, we call it an owlet, smallest that we get here, and it is maybe 6 inches. From the top of its head to the tip of its tail. And it has false eyes on the back of its head that gives it an advantage, that no matter where it's looking, smaller birds like fork-tailed drongos or other owls are constantly intimidated by these, by always being looked at. There we go. Looking for that grasshopper, but it's flown away now. Owl. Mostly feeding on insects, small reptiles. They can strike at things in a tree, but they're mostly finding things on the ground, and they are known to even take small birds, as small as they are. And they're also known to be somewhat diurnal. They're not entirely nocturnal, and that's why this little one is out here at the moment. It seems to be quite actively hunting or looking. And owls also have exceptional hearing, and the facial discs that you have around the eyes are often also discs that channel sound to the ears just behind the eyes. You often find owls that have those tufts that look like ears. Those aren't the ears. Ears are on the skull, and those are just false ears to sort of create expressions like a cat. Although I'm sure they do aid in hearing, also channeling sound. I'm going to use gravity to slowly roll further down the hill, and he flew. It was pretty good. We chose exactly the same moment to move. Flew somewhere in here. Good afternoon to Mr. Bear. James is asking about marulas, whether they are related to mangoes. Is it true that they were harvested for wood in the Second World War? I'm going to have to... There's a boom slung hanging out of this tree. The bottom of that knob in that marula tree. Speaking of marula trees, there's a boom slung's head hanging out of the bottom of this tree. Watching the world go by on a Sunday. I'm sure there's a song about that. Watching the world go by. Something like that. Withdrawing a little bit and looking our way. I have to look up family of the mango tree. It's possible, James, because the fruit is very the structure of the fruit, the skin, the actual pulp, to some degree the seed, the nut, the seed, is similar in structure, so I would imagine that genetically they are linked, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to look at botanical names. I know that the marula, well, I'd have to find, because the mango is not an indigenous tree, so I don't know much about it. I do know some entomologists that are permanently employed by one of the biggest mango growers here in Hoedspruit, who I love conversing with because, well, their knowledge of specific insects is unbelievable. So I'm going to have to look up, if I get a chance this afternoon. I don't know if I'll have it in my book, but I'll certainly try one of my tree books. I'm hoping the snake is going to do something, but we could sit here all day, but we're going to sit for a little bit. Since it's in a marula tree, and we're talking about marula trees, one of the inhabitants of a marula tree, as a result of galls that develop in the marula tree, one of the inhabitants are the snake known as the boomslang, or as we say, boomslang. Boomslang. Directly translated means tree snake. It is probably one of the most powerful venoms in the reptile world. One of, because of course there are some that are more powerful. I think the yellow-bellied sea snake. I think there are one or two that might be worse. But there is one perhaps saving grace, in that it is a type of venom that is relatively slow acting, and although there are only a very limited number of hospitals that keep anti-venom for this type of bite, it's very unusual to even be bitten, and if you are, there's always time to be able to get to one of those hospitals, no matter how far it is. The other thing, of course, is that this is not a very temperamental snake. It's not a kind of snake that, or rather irascible, or even short-tempered, or any simile. They are quite relaxed. They are pretty good to have around. Their biggest failure in life is that they eat chameleons, and I love chameleons. But by the same token, I kind of really like snakes, and they're rather intriguing. Boomslang. I've had boomslang living outside my house in a hole that is sometimes occupied by squirrels, sometimes occupied by a monitor lizard, and sometimes occupied by a boomslang at varying times of the year. I don't know how they have the rental agreement sorted out, but somehow it kind of works. Oh, getting a bit shy, so that's because I looked so directly at it for that moment. Almost made eye contact, and now I know where you live. Bye bye. Boom slang. You're gonna have to look into that. Is kind of a soft wood. It decomposes pretty quickly. So this, by the way, while we're on trees, might as well just show you as I'm rolling past. But this poor stunted giant is a false marula, known as a lania. Not a Lannister, a lania. And it's only called a false marula because there's some similarities to the bark. It's almost mosaic-like. It's kind of a similar texture to the marula tree. But what's most important of all are the leaves. They look very, very similar, but there's a very, very subtle difference between the marula leaf and the false marula leaf. And maybe we'll have to, well, I know I'm not going to find another false marula very soon, but I'll be able to find a marula. So I'm going to go and grab a false marula leaf. One leaf. Oops. So that is one leaf of the false marula. It is what we call a compound leaf, which means that in a hot, dry climate, sometimes it's better that instead of having one large leaf that has to bear the full brunt of the sun, to divide it up into what we call leaflets, a number of small leaves that actually belong to the same leaf. Excuse me. Sorry. And so these are called leaflets. And we're going to have to find a marula tree to show you the difference between these leaflets and the leaflet of the marula tree. This is known as the petiole. The stem of a leaf is known as a petiole. So we're going to be looking at that, and we're also going to be looking at the stem of these leaflets, and that's called the petiolule. And it's that very thing, the petiolule, that is very distinctly different in the false marula and the marula. I think they're different trees entirely. Their fruits are very different. Although the false marula is palatable, and it's a very nice fruit to eat. It's a very small berry. And you've got quite a few of them in your mouth to really get the taste. The go-away birds and the monkeys. Many things. Barbets. There are lots of things that go for. On the way to the hyena den, but we're just getting a little distracted. Sandy as it is, it'll all just brush off. I'm going to put it over there so I can tell you about it. But first we have to go and visit its parent, which is not far, and I'm even going to use the gravity drive to get there. If you don't know what the gravity drive is, let me show you. See, I press this button in here and I engage gravity drive, and it's silent. Only these landies have it. Okay, so there's the parent. And a lot of you know this tree, but for those of you who are fairly new to our broadcast and our live drives, this is a sausage tree. And whilst there aren't any sausages on it at the moment, we have had a look over summer at a couple of them when they were starting to grow, and eventually when one fell off. And We had a look at it when it was still a very heavy and very fresh fruit, full of, I suppose, full of water, full of sap, and full of the juices, I suppose. That's what makes it a fruit. And it's very hard to describe the fibrous texture of this fruit without seeing it at the end of summer when it's drying out and it's desiccated, and all that's left is this very, very tough fiber, the very thing that makes it so unpalatable or so difficult to eat for many things, including us hominids. Baboons love getting into it. This one has probably been left by baboons on the road. It almost looks like a loofah inside, but this fiber is much tougher and much rougher than a loofah. And the loofah, of course, is actually a cucumber family, by the way. This is the sausage of the sausage tree. This is so dried up that all the juices, all the moisture is out of it, and all that is left is the very tough fiber. And encased in this are, of course, the seeds that a lot of the things like parrots and baboons all try and get to amongst the fruit. And we managed to find a couple of these sausages in summer, and I've put them in places where hopefully they will be able to grow, because there is only this one sausage tree out in the bush. There are a number of other sausage trees. Just looking at the seeds, they've all been parasitized. I don't even think any of these seeds are going to be viable. And those are probably the larvae of seed bugs, seed beetles. But hopefully there'll be some more. There are some sausage trees growing in anything there, but we'll still have a look nonetheless. I want to remind you that we will be having a fireside chat. Brent and I will be on a fireside chat this evening at soon after drive, just after 6. Soon after drive as we can. Just after 6 this evening will be a fireside chat. We will be broadcasting from our courtyard, the courtyard where we stay, around the fire. And we will be using the same fire to cook our dinner tonight. Do an imitation of a pearl-spotted owlet, and that's from Jean in North Carolina. Jean, I'll try my best. Pearl-spotted owlet. Oh! I'm going to have to go around the bend. I know I'm around the bend already, but we just driven past hyena with the carcass that we saw being dragged. Well, we saw the drag mark this morning. I'm seeing another adult at the mouth of the bend. Oh, it's not quite fast asleep, but clearly in a protective posture. She's also lying in a posture that tells me that she's perhaps open to suckling if the cubs come out. We'll come back and have a look and see shortly. We're on a mission right now to solve a mystery that I found this morning, and I didn't really get a chance to follow up on it. and would be a better position to come and say hello to her. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's a distraction, I know, but there's this yellow-throated plated lizard at the mouth of that hole. It's not only the raptors that are out after this cold, wet weather, it's also some of the reptiles. And we so seldom get to see some of the reptiles. This is one of the largest of the lizards that we get. It's got an exceptionally long tail. A really beautiful lizard. I'll have to show you a picture in the book because we can only get a glimpse of sort of its head and its neck. We may get a look at it from the back. So I'll just move around here a little bit. Yeah, there might be a better view from here. Might not be yellow-throated even. That might be a rough-scale plated lizard. Wish I could get closer, but of course it'll just dart down the hole. Quite miraculous that it lives here in the same termite mound with 3 marauding, growing, hungry infant hyena. You probably don't even know it exists. Interesting little ecosystem we got going here. Now, back to the matter at hand, and short of any other distractions, the hyena lying next to a carcass. Well, that's quite far in, and so is the carcass. I'm not going to see too much, but we came really close to it because I had my eye on the den, and Andrew saw her as we came past. Now, it's hard to see a considerable amount of it that has been eaten. I believe this is an impala ram. Now, we were here this morning and nothing was happening. It was fairly quiet. It was quite early. It was still a little bit chilly. I had the impression that maybe everyone was sleeping inside the den, but obviously the others were out. And while we were here, they must have been elsewhere. At some point, which was very close to the end of drive, Mvula, the big male leopard, was seen on our eastern boundary. And just for interest's sake, because somehow they come all the way from cage behind her. Let's go see the other one at the entrance to the den. And it is siesta time for hyenas. I don't want to stay too long. Just to say hello. And we're thinking of you on this lovely warm Sunday afternoon. Hello, Mama Hyena. Do you got children today? Can we come back a little bit forward? Sorry. Let's not flood the engine, Mark. That's good. Sunday siesta. And the sigh. That's the Sunday siesta sigh. No tax man, no landlord, no dictator, no ruler, no king, only a queen, and she might be the queen. It's a sisterhood hyena. Mostly only females. Males don't have very much of a role, or rather they have a role, alright. That's only to make baby hyenas. But they don't have much say. They don't have much standing in the sisterhood. Lynn wants to know if the youngsters are eating meat yet. I would imagine they are, Lynn. I would imagine one of the reasons why this carcass was brought back here rather than torn to pieces. And I'd also imagine that's one of the reasons why Mom is guarding it like she is the other female, maybe the other mother. Why she's guarding it like it is, waiting for the time to familiarize themselves with what their dinner plate's going to look like for the rest of their year, their days on this planet. And that means we're going to have to come back here later just before fireside chat, I think we're going to have to try and get back here, because this is going to be very interesting when the little ones start waking up. So in the meantime, it's time for us to just see if I can just take one more photo of the lizard. This is a rough scale plated lizard, by the way, and I'm going to start the car, Mrs. Hyena. Please don't get a fright. See you later. But I want to get to Buffelshoek Dam. I'm going to have a look and see if Uncle Mvula is there, the grand uncle of all the lizards. Plated lizards moved a little bit, but the sun is coming out a little bit too, and usually at the sight of a vehicle they disappear into the termite mound. Hope that I'm not getting a branch in the way. Should be okay. At the most. See what the book says in a second. Before we head off, because I want to be driving up to Buffelshoek Dam now for a bit, and I'm going to stop for anything that I see, but I want to get up there and have a look, and I want to get back here a little bit later to try and catch up with what's going to happen. We might be witnessing something quite unique here at the hyena den, with the adults bringing back a large carcass for the youngsters to have some experience on it, which I don't think we've witnessed yet, as yet. Anyways, here on this page is the rough scale plated lizard. Now, the way it was sitting earlier when I first glimpsed at it without binoculars, this very pale tan line coming down just above the eye was so bright in the sunshine I thought it was yellow, which is very typical of the yellow-throated plated lizard, and I'll show you which one that is. That's this one over here on the bottom, and a little bit of a smaller plated lizard than the rough scale plated lizard. I have seen one out that they don't necessarily live on termite mounds. They can live out in open grassland with a very long tail. Now there are a couple of other plated lizards, the tawny plated and the giant plated, two plated lizards that we're not likely to get here. This is the giant plated lizard. They get fairly large, almost like a small monitor lizard. Beautiful lizards, but they only live on rocks and very huge rocky outcrops, not just like a single rock jutting out of the ground. This, by the way, is the juvenile of the giant plated lizard. Very pretty. Very often the reptiles are quite cryptically colored as juveniles to help them escape predation. Mostly they're often colors that are considered aposematic coloration that pretty much warns things that they can be dangerous, or not to even try with them. Bye bye hyenas, we'll see you just now. Later. Just now. Just now here in South Africa means later. There's no specific time frame that can be applied to the term just now. In some parts of the world, just now means now. No, but that for us is, maybe we would say no, I'll see you now. But that could also be 5-10 minutes away. Right now means right now, but just now means it could be 6 o'clock tonight. Not too far ahead, because then it's not just now anymore, then it's later. Often have fun with that. In fact, there's a clock you can get, the South African clock. Doesn't have numbers or things on the dial. It has just now, later, now, maybe. This dark line that we have running parallel to us now as we head down Weaver's Nest Road is a drainage line. It's a dry riverbed. Guinea fowl in the road. But anyways, the hyena drag marks were coming up this drainage line and must have crossed the road here somewhere where we are now, close by. Hello, little drongo. Can we get you on camera, please? You're so close. Pretty little things, but naughty, and they are clowns of note. And they're following the guinea fowl. There's another one too, because the guinea fowl miss more insects that they can catch, and that's the drongos that catch the ones that fly up that the guinea fowl can't get. Off you go. Just caught something now. Beautiful guinea fowl, helmeted guinea fowl. Beautiful light. That's for my mom for her birthday yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom. I love you lots. See you soon. A couple of youngsters here. Yeah, they are. The youngsters you can see are pretty grey. Here they're coming into the road now to join the others on the right hand side of the road. There are 3 little pterodactyls. Weird, funny looking when they're young like that. Adults are quite pretty with the blue and the red, and the contrast of the black with the dark, or rather the white spots. Quite an iconic bird, actually. Very good question. Lynn, I think, in New York. No, Terry. Oops, sorry, Terry. Do they lay eggs or do they give birth live? Let me think whether my experience has seen any evidence otherwise. Terry, I might have to consult my book, but I think they lay eggs, so I think they're oviparous. And there are lizards. I know there are a number of the skinks that give birth live. They're what we call ovoviviparous. I think. I don't know. I kind of forget a lot of that terminology. Easier to say they lay eggs, they give birth live, but the eggs are in eggs, but they incubate. The eggs incubate within the mother's body, so it's the appearance of live birth. It's sort of the beginnings of the amniotic sac, I suppose, the beginnings of what we mammals know as live birth. Plated lizards. I know skinks do. Some of the skinks. I'll have to consult the text. Bear with me, Terry. There's 6 species. They're fairly large and robust. Largest, of course, the giant plated. Second only to the monitors. Blah de blah. Head is short. Yeah, I get all of that. Dorsum of the body, dorsal scales, rougher there. Range 8 to 18. Prominent fold in the skin. And that doesn't tell me anything. Body coloration, biology. Diurnal, terrestrial, poles, termiteria, except for the rock dwelling. They evidently show some degree of parental care, but it's not very sure yet. Come on, tell me something about egg laying, please. They lay small clutches of 2 to 8 soft-shelled eggs. All the species of the group. There we go. Why didn't I read the Why didn't I read the heading that said reproduction? I guess that would tell me. Okay, so evidently they all lay small clutches of 2 to 8 soft-shelled eggs, usually buried under a rock or a log. It doesn't tell me about incubation. Giant plated tend to lay their eggs in the crevice, and then they cover them with soil, and the female actually guards over and cares for the clutch. The young even use their parents' backs as basking sites, basking in the sun. Okay, that gives us our answer. I didn't quite see them as live bearing. Mostly because the closest relatives to the plated lizards perhaps are the agamas, and they're egg laying. I suppose they're kind of between the agamas and the skinks. What is next? We don't know. Something might just pop its head out of the bush around the next corner. Morning, Genevieve. Very good question, Genevieve. In fact, well, Genevieve is asking, is it still moist enough for mushrooms to emerge? Yes, it is. And we've only had this little bit of sunshine now, so maybe tomorrow morning I'll ask Brent to look out, because Brent's probably going to be out in the morning. I'll ask him to be on the lookout, especially coming out of elephant dung and other herbivore dung. It's the most likely place to find mushrooms, perhaps out of some of the decaying wood that lies around, but the most likely mushrooms are going to be the small little parasols, the little umbrella mushrooms, and very, very fine mushrooms that grow relatively fast. We're not quite in the dry season. It's unusual perhaps in the dry season if we were to get a shower in the dry season, and we occasionally do. I've noticed many occasions in around July, which is pretty much midwinter, with a full moon, occasional, there's sort of a light shower that comes across. And it's been grey enough conditions to maybe throw a few mushrooms up overnight tonight, or maybe they're starting. I'll keep my eyes open now that you've asked. Genevieve in New York. Thanks for the email. You can email questions to questions@wildearth.tv if you want to send us a question. Also, please include where you're from. It's lovely to know where you live on the planet. We all share this planet, and I'm so happy to share my little bit of it with you. If you want the shorter version, there's Twitter, and you can send that to #SafariLive, which is the tweet address, Twitter address, the Twitter tweet. What you looking at? Hornbill starling.
Yeah. Just as we drive by.
Now, yes, let's go this way because I want to look for the pachyderm family as well. I didn't mention that earlier. I don't want to get your hopes up. But one of the most devastating things you can hear at the end of a game drive is there's a herd of elephant crossing north over Gowrie Main at Twin Dams, and we'd been to Twin Dams, we'd spent some time there this morning, and there at the end of drive, after I'd said goodbye to everybody, there's a herd of elephant coming on to Djuma. I think there was a very nice feather on the round there, but I missed it. Probably a hornbill feather. Thinking those drag marks were on Twin Dams Road. They must have come down Central Road or something. So let's try and get to Central Road to take Nala Road south perhaps. See some of the drag marks crossing there. There was another little shower of rain. It wasn't strong enough to obliterate any of the fresh tracks from this morning. It's just enough to dampen things a little bit. And also I think it was very isolated around camp, so I don't think we had too much trouble trying to find things. I want to stop here because I'd like to listen very quietly, see if maybe we could hear the odd twig break, because it might be that those pachyderms came up this direction. I'm going to have to look for some of their tracks too. I'm going to step away for a second to listen without the hum of the vehicle, because sometimes when they're feeding on a lot of the lusher vegetation, they're just tearing grass or stripping leaves. A whole herd of elephant can be more quiet than a human, and I don't want to move, I don't want to miss them. But I'm hoping that I'm looking for tracks of the drag marks of the hyena. Maybe we'll find these elephant tracks, and there's a good chance that since we're heading to Buffelshoek Dam, good chance that they might have been doing so too. If they were coming in north, they either went to Gowrie Dam or they went to Buffelshoek Dam. And I think Buffelshoek Dam is a little bit more attractive for elephants right now because the water's a lot deeper, so it's a lot cleaner. Gowrie Dam seems to be kind of getting very mucky, very murky, muddy. It's great for elephants to splash in and have mud bars. But, and perhaps there are times when they will drink towards the dam wall, but well, I'll only know if I find the track, and I hope we can. find that marula leaf for you now. Of course, marula trees are very tall. Wonderful question from Chicago, from Ed. Good afternoon, well, morning, Ed. And sort of depth in the water that hippo would be able to tolerate before they have to move to deeper waters. In some cases, Ed, probably only when it dries up. In some cases, hippo are forced to stay where they are until the last little bit of mud exists, and then they're either forced to trek very far or bear the brunt of the onslaught of a herd that they don't belong in, or a territory they don't belong in. Some wonderful vervet monkeys hanging out in this knobthorn, and they're probably eating the seed pods. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They like beans, or rather pea pods. No, more like like snow peas maybe. Not as sweet. Well, we can't eat them, they're not really palatable for us. But before they harden and dry up, the monkeys get into them, but they also get into the actual growing cotyledon, the growing seed, before it hardens too, while it's still soft and green. The fact that they're all feeding peacefully tells me that they are quite at ease with what's going on around them. There's no alarming. There has just been a grey lory or a go-away bird alarming way to the southwest of us, but nothing that has even attracted their attention or changed their behavior. So not an immediate threat and not something to be worried about. So I'm going to leave them for now. A little one of the youngsters, probably born around the beginning of summer. How many monkeys are in the tree? And what is the average size of a troop? The question from Anonymous. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe no, not even a dozen, maybe 10 monkeys in this tree. I don't know if this is the whole troop. Troop size varies. There isn't a norm. Troop size can vary from anything from 10 monkeys to 30. It depends on their territory, depends on the available food source, depends on the density of monkeys in an area and how much pressure there is from other troops. I invoke the depends clause. So many depending things. But yeah, I guess you could say average 10 to 20 in a troop. Can get bigger, smaller is not really sustainable, because you see, the time spent feeding has to be divided up between the time spent grooming, socializing, mating, and most importantly, looking out for danger. And the more monkeys you have in a troop, the more secure your troop, because the more eyes you have and ears you have looking out, and so the better chance of survival. So the stronger the troop, the more chance there is of surviving the perils of living out here, where an eagle can take you out of a tree, or a snake can catch you, or a leopard can, or a very seldom lion, maybe some of the other smaller predators, but generally leopard, pythons maybe, and certain eagle species. Let's go to Buffelshoek Dam. We'll continue our journey to Buffelshoek Dam. See, it's not the destination, it's the journey. All the little things on the way. Hello, Mr. Buffalo. A good afternoon to you, too. You're not really a youngster, are you? I know how you feel, dude. The hierarchy and social structure of a primate group like vervet monkeys, you'll have the older females will be, it's almost kind of matriarchal, but it's still dominated by an alpha male. Excuse me, I just gotta listen to the Game Drive radio. Listening to the updates of what's going on around Djuma and not quite Arathusa, but Djuma and our surrounding areas, some of which we visit and some we don't. Excuse me. Okay, good. Well, I was heading up to Buffelshoek Dam. I'm on Yellow Road South at the moment. Copy that, thanks. Also, let me know if you find any sign of that Colombian glove, if you're going to maybe go around Drakensberg and down, maybe Bataleur or something. They were last seen heading on the eastern side of the Milwaukee towards Mumba Road. I'm sorry, Buffalo, I don't really mean to disturb, and I know it's just one chance that you have of staying in this wallow, because if the sun comes out tomorrow, this wallow's not. And the one where we saw the other buffalo just now, or just now, not now, a minute ago. Afternoon, Squire. You can have all of my flies. I promise you can take them all. Yeah, you're welcome. I can see how the flies bugging them much as they bug me. They get into the eyes and the nostrils, and as thick-skinned as they may be, I feel for you, dude. I really do. I'm with you all the way. I'm doing the same thing, except I don't have ears that move, and I'm kind of lacking a tail. But the Waller has only filled up after the rain now, and they no longer have to go and sit at the few dams that are left. I think I was talking about the hippo, the smallest amount of water. In some cases, even this will be good enough for a hippo if it's all that it's got. But here, I think with all the dams, they kind of tolerate each other when some of the dams dry up. Same as the buffalo. When these little wallows start drying up, they tolerate each other in the dams that are the ones that remain through the dry season. On we go. Oops. Alarm call. Alarm call from a go-away bird. It's a kind of alarm call that tells me there's an eagle that's been seen by birds somewhere. Oh, he wants a piece of you, Andrew. He's coming. His friend's a bit of a chicken running away, but... Sorry boys, I'm sorry to disturb. I'll leave you now. I'll leave you be. Bachelor boys. Not much different to me. Oh, that rhyme. We're slowly moving north. I want to head to Buffelshoek Dam because Mvula the leopard, big male leopard, was last seen there this morning. Brent did find tracks. Brent went to have a look. Did find tracks, but we managed to find him. Now this is Nyala Road North, straight ahead of us. It's the quickest way to Buffelshoek Dam. But there are a lot of signal breakups there, and I'd like to just head east for a little bit. This is Central Road, and this is going to tell me what might have crossed going north-south until we get up to Drakensberg Road, Drakensberg Drive. it helps me understand what and where the animals are at the moment, or more specific, those animals that merely move through the area. They either encompass a larger territory than what we have here at Djuma, or they have such a large home range or such a large area of ground that they cover that we are but a little postage stamp.
Sorry, there's just some dwarf mongoose on the termite line there.
Okay.
Quite a few of them.
I wondered why the hornbill was looking like it was. Uh-huh. Well spotted, Andrew. I don't know what it is about hornbills and dwarf mongooses, but mongooses, yeah, that too. But they do spend time together, and I think because hornbills do like to dig up grubs more than, well, as much as they like to catch insects in the grass and feed on fruits and berries and things. I think with dwarf mongoose, who dig a lot, sometimes they're so frantically digging for things they don't really see some of the stuff that they actually dig up. That sits close by maybe be the one that finds it. Now if I go a little bit forward, we'll see a little bit more of this relationship that they have. There's a hornbill right next to a mongoose on the termite mound there. Although it's preening, it's definitely there because the mongoose are there. And the mongoose are pretty much all around it. Oh, it's flown off around the back. I think this is a colony that are foraging. I don't think they live around that termite mound. I think they're on the move. That's why they are. There's some further back. So they're on an expedition, their daily expedition to find food. Hello, child. Such a glossy coat in this late afternoon light. Toileting. Maybe they do live up there. Maybe they're coming home after a day of foraging. Digging up grubs, chasing lizards, stealing eggs. Yeah, the usual kind of mongoose routine. You can see a squirrel with a marula nut and a squirrel eating buffalo thorn berries, and a bird that I really need to... oh, it's flown away. Where did that come from?
No idea.
No, he couldn't. He got headphones on. We might just have to do Nyala Road North. See? Yep. I think it's the African hawk eagles that are down there. Just up the drainage line. This is the drainage line that comes from Buffelshoek Dam. We might just have to endure a little bit of signal break-up to head that way, because I heard a francolin alarming. I don't know if you can see that squirrel in the buffalo thorn here.
Yes, I can see it.
The other squirrel that had a marula nut run off with the marula nut. But this little child's harvesting marula nut, buffalo thorn fruits. Probably chewing into it to get to the seed. Now there was a green woodupoo. Still wonder if I find one of those for Chris. Hi Cindy in Boston. Cindy's asking a question about animal alarm calls. Is it the urgency and the repetitiveness or the tone? I'm going to have to paraphrase, but what is it about the alarm call that tells us that it's an alarm call? It's mostly, Cindy, it's the harshness of it. Most of the birds have a melodious call, and the animals that give alarm calls certainly don't have that kind of a vocabulary when they're talking to each other, because most of their talking is done with body language, because vocalizing is only left for a couple of very important things, one of which is to be able to sound the alarm. So alarm calls are all very, very harsh. Not so much the repetitiveness of it, but certainly the urgency and the tone and there's a frantic, sometimes harsh, sometimes very excited. Trying to think of ways to describe it, but alarm calls are very distinctly alarm calls. You can't mistake alarm calls for communication calls, except for the parrots, of course. I mean, parrots have just got a loud squawk, so you just got to give them their due. That's how they like to talk to each other. There's subtleties in their squawks, I think, that we don't understand. Let's continue. I haven't heard more alarm calls. I still want to go this way. Somehow. I'm going to stick to my guns this time. Mostly because I know we're going to lose signal if we go Nyala Road North in a lot of places, because it's an up and down thing, and I do use that road sometimes. A long time ago, there was actually an African hawk eagle nest. There's the green woodpecker, and I have to get up the hill. One of them. Don't fly away, please.